Bob Sansevier here with Gophers beat writer Marcus Fuller and Pioneer Press sports editor Mike Bass. Now, Mike, in a few days, the Twins open the season, and there are years when they start the season and people think they got a shot at winning the division. Right now, it seems like everyone's going to be chasing Detroit, and where do you see the Twins falling in behind that chase? Can they be second?
It's amazing. I've been here 10 years. You've been here a lot longer. I can't remember a time where there was less anticipation for the season, when the expectations were lower than they are now. It's hard to tell because it's all about health with these guys and pitching. I would say if everybody's healthy and the pitching is decent, which may be as much as we can ask at this point, they can go 500. If it's not, we could be looking at a 70-win season.
You know what? When you say 500, that seems to be the optimistic view.
I know.
If 500 would be, hey, they made 500 after last year. It is an accomplishment. But when you look down that, as you said, the rotation, there's question marks in the pen. I mean, I'd written something today. I think Liam Hendricks is at least people. Well, maybe he's something. He could be the future. No one really is that excited about the current core of pitchers they have in the starting rotation. So, I mean, it is going to be tough, but I do think that there is going to be a little bit of excitement to see how Chris Parmelee does once the season starts and he plays first base, and could he establish himself as as a guy they can count on next year and the year after. Because they have been fortunate with first basemen when guys, set up there, they last a few years generally.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think what we saw last year with all these minor leaguers being rushed up, you looked at it and said, the future of this franchise doesn't look very good, does it? But then, Parmelee did well, as you said. Now, Dozier looked like he was close to making the team, maybe would have if they hadn't signed Jamie Carroll. I think there's some reason for optimism maybe in the future, and that's kind of Terry Ryan's bit, is bringing up the guys in the minor league system and stocking it out much better than it was. And so maybe we're back to looking at the future of the Twins, but they still got to do something about that pitching staff. That rotation scares me.
Well, I think they've done what they're going to do, because if they do, it's going to be a journeyman that brings in. They're not going to make any kind of a big splash. And speaking of splashes, it appears the Gophers are about to make a mild one. They're going to give the Tubby Smith that extension. That it's not unexpected, certainly. Did you? You're hearing? What are you hearing?
Well, right now I'm hearing 3 years, and they're definitely going to give him a raise. They're just figuring out where the raise is going to come from, whether it's going to be in salary, whether it's going to be backloaded. He's got 2 years left on his contract, so basically, we're looking at 5-year deal, and I was told that he wanted more, but this is what you can expect coming off an NIT season.
Now, did he want more in terms of a year commitment and money both, or was it more money he wanted? Because right now, with 2 years left and then the 3-year extension, any kid he's recruiting can feel he's going to be there for 5 years.
Yeah, definitely. You look at the Tyus Jones situation. He's a 2014 kid. He comes in here as a freshman knowing that Tubby Smith will be his coach. I talked to him recently, and he said that was an important factor in Minnesota's recruiting process, knowing that Tubby will be here long term, and definitely be here when he's coming in as a freshman.
Now, Marcus, what do the Trevor Mbakwe, if he does take the 6th year, and Rodney Williams? I don't really see a scenario where it benefits Rodney Williams to go to the NBA. It's not going to be a lottery pick. So, no. I mean, how do they play those two together, assuming that they both wind up on the same team? They both happen to flourish as in the same position.
Well, you pretty simply you put Trevor at center, and in the Big Ten, he's physically enough to handle.
Will he want to play center? Or will he
I don't think that you really have a true center. In the Big Ten, you look at the big men. Jared Solinger, he's 6'8". There are not too many 7-footers in the Big Ten, which is why Eliason, would be a pretty good defensive force in there if he continues to improve, if they allow Rodney to move back to small forward. And I'm not sure that that's the best position for him, because he needs to be closer to basket to utilize his athleticism. It seems to me that moving Trevor to center and having Rodney at the 4 would be the likeliest lineup right now.
Mike, do you think that getting Mbakwe back and Williams here and the maturation of Hollins, do they become better than an NIT team? Do they become an NCAA tournament team if they do get Mbakwe back with a little bit of a run? That these kids did show some maturity or maturation as the season went on. They went to the NIT.
Well, even if they don't get Mbakwe back, they should be, considering what they did at the end of the season, and with Hollins taking over the way he did. you got to think that this is a team that should be an NCAA tournament team. It doesn't necessarily mean that they'll make the Sweet 16 or the Final Four, but they should be at that level next year. And they also, Marcus can answer this better than I can, the whole idea of Lockett. Could they end up getting him who wants to transfer back here? And how are they going to clear up those scholarships positions? That's what intrigues me about that team.
Yeah, where do they find the scholarship for Mbakwe?
Well, you look at every year, we're not going to be thinking of 4 players leaving in a two-year span like what happened with Royce White, Colton Iverson, Justin Cobbs, and DeVoe Joseph. But it seems like every year that Tubby's been here, there's been a couple players that leave, at least one player that leaves. I'm not putting out any names out there, but I think that's kind of what the scenario is, what they're hoping for. Guys leaving? And, right away you would immediately fill and put Trevor in one of those spots. And if Trent Lockett is a kid who won't play point guard. He's not a true shooting guard. He's more of a small forward. But he was a leading scorer for Arizona State. He's physical enough to play in the Big Ten, and he's a senior, and he provides some leadership for this team.
Well, here's the key question. One of the guys leaving wouldn't be Hollins, would it?
One person the other day mentioned his name as an April Fool's joke, and I think got a lot of Gopher fans pretty excited.
Is leaving?
Yeah. Well, I think that, you look at Andre Holland's situation, and he's the only player that I can think of in Tubby's tenure that Tubby actually said, you know what, I'm going to let you take over this team as a young player, and I'm going to basically gear the offense around your game, up tempo, and he's definitely taken that and ran with it at the end of the NIT season.
Now, Mike, the Timberwolves season is starting to wind down, and they've had a rough go, 4-10 since they lost Ricky Rubio. I'm just trying to think back to teams where people were actually excited about a team that's 5 games under 500. But when you look at the way Kevin Love has played and what might have happened and what could happen next year, assuming Rubio gets back, this is a team that I think people justifiably can be excited about over the next few years.
Yeah, there is a lot of reason for optimism about the team just because of what they did. They're exciting. Is Rubio going to come back? How long will it take him to come back and be the way he was? If they don't end up making the playoffs, wouldn't it be funny if this is the year they move up in the lottery and end up getting somebody decent after all those years they were terrible? It is a chance for them to get, maybe that one more piece, either through free agency or, actually they don't have a draft pick next year. That's right. This is the year they don't have one.
It's probably a decent year not to have one for them, too, because they're not going to get a great pick. Because they're going to be right on the fringe, and the chances of they have to really get lucky in the lottery in order to move way up.
Right. But they can't. They lost the pick. So,
yeah, so that's what I mean.
Scratch what I said.
It's not a bad position to be in.
But through free agency, they now may be in a position to attract somebody a little bit better. Because in the past, who would want to come here?
And the other, conversely now, when you talk about the Wild, the way they've won a few games now, but I don't know that there's the excitement for the Wild for next year that there would be for the Wolves because there's really not a lot to get you excited about.
Well, talk about a team that went all the way. I mean, the Wolves did too to a certain extent, but now like this, that so much excitement at first.
Didn't have the best record in the league.
Yeah, and then just completely fell apart. The thing about the Wild is they have a lot of good young players coming up all around the same time, and so there is some reason for optimism on them. How long it'll take them to get there? Will they all develop at the same level? We don't know, but you can't see it from what you're seeing right now on the ice.
Now, Marcus, we're going to end this with a quick comment about the Vikings, but I wanted to ask you, is it possible for Gray to make an incredible leap and become a high draft pick in the NFL? I mean, he'd have to have a terrific year, but he seems to have the kind of talent that could get him, move him up because he's a terrific athlete.
I think it might be stretching to say that he could be a high draft pick as a quarterback. We all know that he's the athlete that can play at the receiver position. He's shown that in college, and he can play it at a high level in the Big Ten. What we see now is his maturation process as a passer, and I think giving him a better offensive line, giving him a better receiving targets will only further along that process, and also being in the same offensive system, having the same offensive coordinator for 2 years in a row.
Well, can he be an NFL wide receiver, or can he even be an NFL quarterback?
I think that right now, teams have probably seen enough from him to think that they would give him a shot as a receiver in the NFL.
But not as a quarterback.
But not as a quarterback yet, because like I said, it's that maturation process as a passer, which you would think that would happen for him this year. He showed glimpses of that at the end of last season with the game against Michigan State, the game against Illinois, and just showing that he is making that growth. And like I said, having the same offensive coordinator and the same offense 2 years in a row, which Weber really never had, is going to make a big difference for him.
Well, Marcus, I'm going to end this with 5 words: Vikings, 3rd pick, Matt Khalil.